Hi everyone, I'm Susan Birch and welcome back to another A Health Detective podcast. And today I'm really pleased to be introducing you to Annica Strandberg-Schmidt, who is from Sweden, and she's following on from the podcast I did with Britten-Jonsson a little while ago about sugar addiction. And today we're going to talk about sugar addiction in children, which I think is something that's, pretty relevant today when we're seeing all the increasing health problems that we have in our young people. So thanks so much for coming, Annica.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this, really.
Yes, our first attempt at recording, we had some pretty bad, unstable internet. So I'm really glad we've made it today. So do you want to just carry on?
No, I just said me too. I'm happy to be here and that the weather was all right so we could do this. Yeah.
Would you like to start just by telling your own story about sugar addiction? I had quite a few emails from the podcast, following the podcast I did with Britten, where people said, "Oh, that's just me." Like, finally, someone understands, someone is talking about how I feel and what's happening to me. So yeah, maybe we could just start with your own experience.
Yeah, sure. First, I want to say that what you just said, that the feeling of finally someone is understanding me or kind of pushing the right buttons or saying the right things. That's the same kind of feeling I had when I heard about sugar addiction for the first time, because I'm a sugar addict myself. And when I look back at my own story, I realized that I was about 3 years old when I had developed an addiction already. So I have this story from my mother and father telling me with a little laugh that I had all my Easter candies and put them in a bag, and I was sitting under the kitchen table eating all the sweets and stuff. And I was eating so much I almost threw up. So I kind of just handed them the bag. They saw my hand with the bag of sweets, and I was like, "Please take this, otherwise I'll throw up," and they were laughing and having the bag and so on. But the morning after, early in the morning, I went down in the kitchen and I sneaked the candy out again, and I was eating it because I had to have some more sweets to get my biochemistry balanced again, because I wasn't feeling well. And that's the same kind of thing that an alcoholic does when he has to have a drink in the morning or whatever. So this is how my story started, really, with sugar addiction. And I grew up in a family where I had a lot of hugs. I was told I was loved, and my brothers and me were having from outside, and I had everything that I needed for growing and developing as a person and everything. But still, I developed an addiction. So my life was kind of surrounded in my head about eating, not eating, and weight, up and down or whatever, all the time, from when I was a little girl until I think it kind of started blooming more and more when I entered the teenage period. When I went into an anorectic period of my life. I was exercising, not eating or under eating. And then I was excessive eating when I came home, and I really had no control over it. I felt that I was in control, but my mental health started slowly slipping the slope, so to say. So I had from very early on suicidal thoughts, which is where I kind of ended up. If we go fast with the story, I was, I think, 28 when I realized that there was such a thing as sugar addiction, and that was what I was really indulging in. And the story ended, or the sugar addiction story ended, and my life started when I was sitting at the kitchen table writing letters to my 2 kids, who were then 2 and 1 year old, and to my husband, and telling them that I can't go on with this. But as I was sitting there writing these letters, I finally, realized or came to a thought that I think I had a book, I had a book about sugar addiction, or, that eating differently maybe could help me feeling better, because I bought this book a couple of years ago, and I was just, skipping through the sides and doing it like another diet. But when I really brought this book out and read what was standing there, and that was a really early book, nowadays I'm not eating like that, but changing that way, taking away sugar and sweeteners and flour right then, that was a life changer for me. And then I started to read more about sugar addiction to find out how to recover, because, like Britten-Jonsson said, she was really claiming that this is an addiction. And for me, addiction is really, that's only, alcohol and heavier drugs and so on. But I was lucky enough to have treatment from this area in my part of Sweden, and they sent me to Britain, which I'm very grateful for today, because she really made me realize that sugar addiction isn't like having an addiction. It's an addiction. It's the same illness. And if I wouldn't have understood that, if I didn't get that knowledge, if I hadn't gotten that knowledge, I don't think I would have recovered, and I wouldn't have been alive today. So that's my story from active addiction to recovery. And today I'm working as a sugar addiction counselor, and I'm doing some tutoring in Britain's sugar education, the evaluation tool to see if you have a sugar addiction or not. And I'm specialized with working with kids, because as I told you, I had 2 small kids when I entered recovery, and I was really scared, because I saw what this kind of food had done to me, and I didn't want my kids to go through the same story with this mental health issue, wanting to commit suicide in the end, So I kind of read everything I could find about children and sugar and flour and eating healthy and how to get them active, and I was reading so much, putting everything together. And also I had the addiction view, because there's so much knowledge out there about how to eat and how to have healthy children and so on, but I don't think that they have the angle from sugar addiction, because it's so easy to tell someone, especially a young child, you can have just a little bit of something. But if you have an addiction, you can't. And then with all the obesity in the world, I think that it's very important that we put sugar addiction on the map early, really early, for kids, to be able to help them, to give them tools, because they need to recover as much as we adults do. But this is a journey, and I shouldn't say a fight, because that's not a good word to start with. It's a journey and something we have to discover, and something we need to do something about. And we're just in the beginning, but I want to go further with this.
So, it raises some really important questions, I think, Annica. You were 3 years old. Britten tells me she was a young child and she was stealing the sugar cubes. So you haven't really learned, that's not really a social addiction that's developed, is it? So what's driving it? Is it genetic? Is it some sort of brain chemistry? What makes it different?
Well, it's both. If you don't have the sensibility to develop an addiction, you don't do that, because if you have too much sweets and don't have this wonderful brain that we addicts have, you will say after a few bites, well, this is enough. I can't have any more. I'm full. I'm not feeling well, And also, the social thing is also part of it, because if the environment that you're growing up in is allowing a lot of sweets and treats and everything, it's easier, of course, to develop the addiction faster. Even though, like I said, if your biochemistry doesn't have the sensibility for developing it, you won't do that. But it's a combination of biochemistry and the social space where you environment, yeah, and also what kind of drug you are is okay in your environment, so to say. I mean, we don't families that don't drink or don't invite their children to taste it. It takes a lot of more time. They get older before they even think of trying having alcohol in some way. So that's important, really.
So in our modern food environment, you know, how do we manage our children? How do we identify if they are a child with food addiction? And then, you know, last time we talked, we spoke about how alienating it is for children with sugar addiction, and their parent, it's the same with kids with allergies. Their parents are giving them their food to take out with them, and they get sick of it, and they say, I don't want to be different, I want to eat what the other kids eat.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we as parents really struggle with. But I wish we had the evaluation tool sugar for younger kids to know whether there is an addiction or not. Because if I knew that my kids were sugar addicted or had an addiction, then it's easier to meet the society telling them that this is what my kid needs, because now today I have 3 children, because in my recovery we had another little girl, and she was approximately 4 years old before she even tasted any kind of sugar or flour or anything. But then her older siblings were kind enough to give her some. But when I went to birthday parties for her, when she was in birthday parties with her friends and so on, I always brought her the things to eat, even the food they were eating. And then if they had a bag of candy or something, I don't know if it's the same all over, but here in Sweden usually they get a bag of candy before they go home and such things. So I kept giving her this when she was at the birthday parties, or when we went for as guests somewhere and so on, all the way until she was telling me, I don't want to do this anymore. You don't have to bring the bag because I feel awkward having the different one and so on. So that's when I had to start to back off. And I think if I would have an diagnosis saying that she's an addict, then it would be easier for me to stand up and saying that this is what she needs, even in front of her, kind of telling that this is what you need.
Well, I can imagine that, with children with, say, a peanut allergy or some kind of allergy, and nobody questions. Everyone's very careful because they know that it's life-threatening for the child. And then even with an alcoholic, who would keep pressing an alcoholic to drink?
Yeah. Some do, but it's not like with food.
Yeah.
Have just one bite and just a small one, and sugar isn't dangerous. So, yeah. And also to be seen as a, I don't know, really strange person, and being what's the word, when you're kind of locked into a special thinking that I'm crazy about this and too eager to have everything, all the sugar away and so on, that I'm a kind of UFO.
Yeah.
An alien in the area.
You're
okay. Yeah.
So can you just explain again the difference between why an addict shouldn't even have a little bit compared with, you know, we talk about, you know, the harmful users and the social users. What's the difference? What happens to the addict when they have that little bit?
Well, their brains are having a firework, you know, like you can't imagine. If someone, if a harmful user, they can eat and knowing that they won't get well from it, but something might happen. They fall in love, or they have a new job, or the doctor tells them that you are unhealthy, you need to eat in another way. Then that's the kind of motivation that they need for making the change. But if you have an addiction, you might hear or know that you will be unhealthy. You might have diabetes type 2, or suicidal thoughts, mental issues, and overweight or whatever, and still you can't handle it. You know, it's like you just keep putting your hand in your bag and eating and knowing that this is going to happen. It's going to be worse, you know, and that's because your brain gets hijacked. The feeling of the firework and the firework is so strong in your brain. So that's where you want to go all the time, to have it more and more. And with the addiction comes the thing that you need to eat more or have more, take more, to have the same firework that you had when it was still pleasant. But in the end, you keep eating or drinking or whatever your drug of choice is, and you don't have the fireworks anymore. That's where you go with raising the amount. So you just keep going, and it doesn't give you the pleasure anymore. So that's the difference.
So you just keep seeking out further pleasure. So for a parent who's got a sugar addicted child, you know, how would you approach it? How would you start? What would be the first things that you do? How do you explain it to the child and the rest of the family?
What I do is to start adding things, because usually I meet parents who are sugar addicted themselves, and some know it, and then it's easier for me as a counselor. But some people come to me with their child, maybe they're obese or you know, cranky, or they realize that something is wrong with the way they're eating, and they kind of fix my child, you know. But whichever, I always start adding things, and then I start adding good food. And the first thing that I want to add is either a good protein, animal protein, or animal fat to the food that they are eating. Sometimes you have to start with even, you know, having 3 meals a day. That's the most important thing, and you do that for a couple of weeks, because some kids are kind of grazing, you know, they wake up and they start eating, and they eat all through the day, and they don't eat food, they eat starchy things, sweets, candies, whatever. They just, or I mean, usually it's labeled food, like, you know, all the cereals and things with a lot of sugars and sweeteners, and so they kind of keep grazing. So either if you have the 3 meals and it's not very healthy meals, then you start adding with like good fat and good protein. And then when you're really into that habit and have found out what your kids like, because it's not like, you know, putting a steak in front of them, here, you eat steak. You have to find out. And sometimes it's really, you know, what I myself can't eat, like already made meatballs or sausages or salami or whatever, but I find the best I can, and I find out what does my kid like, you know. So the feeling for me that I'm depriving my kids of anything, and also the kids, their feeling that they're getting deprived of their sweets and so on, that's what we want to reduce. Because when their brains and bodies are having good food, you know, the fats and the protein and everything, then their brains will start to stabilize a bit, and then it's easier to cut down on sugar and sweeteners and so on. And sometimes, I mean, it depends on the parents, because sometimes the parents aren't ready to do the fight to eliminate everything. So they just reduce the amount of sugar and sweeteners. And if it's one sweetener that you really shouldn't have in your kids' food, it's fructose and the high fructose corn syrup. Zero. Get it out, no matter what. I'm not very fond of either sugar or sweeteners, but those two is very important to have.
And do you include fruit in that, the fructose and fruit in that?
No, but eat it together with something.
Yeah.
I mean, if their kid wants some fruit, and maybe one or two a day or daily, or whatever. I'm not very fond of giving fruit, but if they want it and if they can handle it and don't want to eat more and more from it, but do it together with. I mean, if you have a small buffet with some fruits, some salami, maybe some nuts, butter if they like it, because that won't elevate the blood sugar it won't spike the blood sugar in that way. But fruit, the fructose in fruit isn't like having fructose in the foods that you're eating. That's the difference.
Oh, excuse me. And then, we have the additional problem of sugar diets and, kind of table sugar and added sugars really depleting our nutrients, so you touched on that, you're giving them good proteins and good fats. They're getting a lot more nutrients. Their brains being able to become more stable. And yet when they're on that diet of sugar, that's really depleting the body of, magnesium and chromium and, a whole lot of really important nutrients that are needed.
Yeah, and that's also why we need to get the habit, that they're having 3 meals a day to make it really stable, and then start cutting the sugar out. You can mix. I mean, because both the nutrients and the taste, the taste in the mouth, because if they're eating sugary and sweet stuff all the time, to reduce the sugar, they will feel like only only a small amount less will change the food. What is it? The taste buds. So they sometimes if you're having jam, for example, you might have to mix it with berries and go very slowly reducing the sugar.
Right. Yeah.
And like yogurt with a lot of taste in it and sweeteners, you can have natural yogurt and you mix it and slowly go from one place to another. Because if they are having the sweet yogurt one day and then you give them the natural the next day, you will absolutely crash. That won't be
right.
And that's the difference. I mean, when I'm working with grown-ups, with adults, and they are sugar addiction, they go cold turkey. That's how I do it. You take everything away, but with a child, you really can't do that. And also, that's the thing that we can have, that we're not able to have the diagnosis saying that she or he is sugar addicted.
And did you go cold turkey yourself? Is that how you managed your addiction?
Yep, it was. And then I was very happy that I had support, because that's a funny story that me and Britten have, because when I went to the treatment that Britten was having then, I was driving from my area in Sweden and up to north where Britten lives, where she had her treatment center. And that's approximately 5 hours drive or something. And I was stopping at almost every gasoline station, having everything for the last time. I was eating. I was so full when I stopped up in Hudiksvall, the place where the treatment was supposed to be. And then I met Britten on the parking lot, and she's beautiful, her clothes and her colors, her makeup and everything. And she was like, "You have to be hungry now. You've been driving so far." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." Trying to eat some dinner, and I was, I just had everything the whole day. So I really went cold turkey because the day after we just started, we had the food and everything in in the treatment center. So yeah, that's how I did it.
And can you describe that experience for people? I'm thinking about people who feel they may be sugar addicted or know they are, because it must feel very uncomfortable. You know, what you described earlier about, you know, just that absolute crushing desire to replenish the sugar. Can you describe the feelings and the emotions, and then, you know, some strategies that you had to take back control and stay strong with that?
For me, the absolute crucial or the most important thing was to have the support from others. I couldn't have done it without myself, with only myself, done it myself. I mean, Britten was giving us a lot of knowledge about addiction, about sugar addiction, and how to handle it. But I needed the support. I remember when I was going back home, I was sitting in my car, and that was a risky situation for me because I usually stopped, like I told you, at every gasoline station to buy something to eat. And so I only had a small box with sardines in it that I was supposed to eat on the way home until I could make myself a meal, a good meal. So I had my phone beside me on my on the seat beside me, and I called someone when I was stopping at the gasoline station to buy some water or whatever. I was calling someone just to make sure I'm doing this now, and I don't want to go in there buy something else. Can I call you back when I'm back in the car? So that's how we do the back-to-back, you know, supporting each other. And I had a lot of daily contact with other in the same situation, asking for support all the time. And I was very unstable and emotionally, you know, crying a lot because I had a lot of cravings to start with because I went cold turkey. And some treatment centers or counselors doesn't do that. They cut it down slowly. But for me, that would have been worse. I had 2 or 3 weeks where I had a lot of cravings, and then it was over, you know. And with help with the support group, that was the best for me, I think, to do it like that. And yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, do you still get cravings now? Do you still have do you still have times when you have this desire to eat something sweet?
I do, but it's not in that way, because when it started and I had the biochemical cravings, it feels, you can describe it. It's like having toothache in your hair. I don't know. It's like I would have, you know, cramped up like a shrimp and just, I want to have it, you know. It's really, and it's really hard to not jump back on the train, you know, when you have that kind of craving. But nowadays it might be more of an unpleasant feeling, me not feeling like, well, it's not such a good day, you know, I'm not happy, I'm not, and my kids are very cranky, they're not good, you know, no good kids. And my dogs, they don't behave well, you know, it's that kind of feeling I'm getting all the time. And then also there might be a thought, because my kids and my husband aren't eating the way that I'm doing. So sometimes I might see something, you know, like sometimes when my older children are, because they are 18 and 20 today, they might have bought something and they put it on the kitchen table or something. And usually I don't even see it. Let's say it's bread or something. And usually I just pass it. And then when I'm having that kind of day, I'm like, oh, there's bread. And I pass it, I don't do anything, but I know that when I'm noticing it's lying there, then I know I'm on my way to have a craving. But now it's more, to me, now it's more emotional. But if someone would have told me, you know, like 16 years ago, that this is going to be my life today, I would have laughed at them, saying that that's not possible. You can't have that feeling of being alive, being happy, being satisfied with your life, being satisfied with my body, with my mental health. And that's, you know, it's not about money, it's about health, you know. That's yeah, like I said, I would have laughed at them. So I think if I would have known, I kind of, you know, when I started my journey and I had met Bitten, this beautiful Bitten on the parking lot, and I was thinking I might have that, what she's having, if I can do this, you know, with the withdrawals and everything to start with. And then I met other people who were also sugar-free and recovering sugar addicts. And that gave me hope, you know, that I might come out on the other side one day having this. But like I said, if someone would have told me the life I'm having today compared to what I did then, I wouldn't have believed them. No way.
That must seem crazy to you now that, you know, 16 years ago, you were writing goodbye letters to your husband and your children. That's, you know.
Yeah, you know, when I'm thinking about it and really, really getting, I mean, like kind of touching that, it gives me goosebumps, but not in a good way. And yeah, and I'm so grateful that I found life, really, because being active in a sugar addiction, to me, that was like living in a parallel universe. What I discovered, and not only physical, I mean, mentally and emotionally and spiritually, something happens to you, happened to me that really changed my life upside down in a good way, in a really good way.
The whole trajectory of your life. So for families who've got, you know, one child that's a sugar addict inside of a, you know, say a normal, I don't want to use the word normal, but, you know, inside of a non-sugar addicted family, how, you know, what strategies can they use? How do you deal with the different foods for the different children? Are the children taught, you know, like we talked earlier about the peanut allergies, are the children taught, well, you just can't eat that because it's not how, you know, it's not good for you, it's not healthy for you? Or what kind of strategies can parents use?
I was thinking, you know, they don't need to eat in a different way, because if the family is normal and don't have a problem with sugar or sweeteners or flour, why should they eat it at all? I mean, it's not healthy for anyone. So I'm my first thought when you asked the question was that would be easier, you know, if everyone else was a normie, because that would be the normal way to eat in the family. And also, I mean, even if I have a child that is sugar addicted, I don't, like I said, if they're going away now, I mean, my youngest one, who she's turning 13 this December, I don't think she's having an addiction, but even if she had, I think I couldn't stop her from having the sweets every now and then and so on. But they really know, and I think I kind of over-educated my children about sugar addiction, because they're kind of, don't talk to me about it, you know, I don't want to hear about it. So that's, you have to be careful, but they need to know about it. And then, I mean, the first thing that I taught them, you know, I wanted to tell them how bad it was for me when I was really in it, that I had suicidal thoughts and almost went there. But that's not the first thing you tell them, you know. If you were a sugar addict yourself, your kids will ask you, why don't you eat like that? And then you can start with, well, this is healthier. I feel better. I'm happy when I eat this way. You know, you kind of give them the good stuff about eating this way. And then you can slowly, I mean, with my kids, I did charts with, you know, having all we got in the mail, we got a lot of advertise, I don't know, it was like, and we were cutting out, you know, like, okay, fruits and vegetables and meats and everything, and we were putting them on charts and saying, okay, this is good fuel for your brain, and this is if you eat this is rocket fuel, you know, you go very fast and your insulin goes very high and so on. So kind of, you know, having doing this together, having fun, cutting, gluing, painting, and teaching at the same time. And the older they get, the more information you can give. And nowadays, my kids know that if I'm having one bite, that's dangerous. I have some recordings with my girls on my YouTube channel, but it's in Swedish. But both my girls, I didn't know that they had already worked out strategies. What will I do if I catch my mom eating, eating
Right.
sweets?
Yeah.
And both of them are going to call bitten. So.
Oh, that's absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said, your first thought was that it was easy, because if it's a normal family, well, then why would you be eating that food? But of course, we live in an environment where that food is considered normal. We live in an environment where our government and our all our health authorities have food pyramids that tell us you should be eating those cereals, and you need to be eating those grains and breads and all those foods that do convert into sugar in our body, and that we shouldn't be eating as much meat, and we shouldn't be eating butter and fat.
Yeah, I know. It's like when my children are going to school and they're having this subject, about food and eating healthy and so on. I'm kind of, okay, you teach, you learn what they're saying, you do the tests, and then you forget about it, because we eat the opposite way. But also, I mean, even if my child is sugar addicted, sometimes, some parents really have them off all sugar, and they do it all the way, and everything is happy-go-lucky. But I think that's also why it's so important for parents to have some kind of support, a group or someone else you're doing it together with, because at some point, usually, this is my experience with working with children, when they go older, they can't stay off sugar because of the environment, the way that teenagers hang out. It's like eating and scrolling, the screen. But I need to remember that I have given them the gift of knowledge. They know if they need want someday, they can come back to me. And that's also why I need to give them the knowledge without putting the shame on it, If I catch them eating, if I find a hide with a lot of sweets and so on, I can just go there saying, I know what this is like, I know what it's like to having my brain hijacked. And knowing and trying to have trust in that they have their own journey. But I might need support from someone else, because I'm getting scared to death that they will have to go through what I did.
Yeah. And what's the best kind of place for that support, Annica? Is a family and friends enough, or can they, sometimes in my experience with the work I do, especially with the health coaching, is family and friends can actually sabotage. They do say just have a little bit, or a little bit won't hurt you, or oh, you're no fun, or I don't want to hang out with you, or you're boring when you're not drinking, or
no, but for me, it's I need other sugar addicts to support me. And I think that's the same. Well, I know it's the same with other parents. So you need someone who knows why you are doing this. And for me, it's like, my wonderful husband and my families, they know that I'm not eating sugar or starch or flours or whatever. But still, I need someone who knows what I'm talking about, because my sweet husband, if I'm telling him that I'm having a craving now and I need to, whatever I need to, he can say something like, what do you want? What would you like to eat when you're having a craving? And I'm like, so I just have to call someone, another sugar addict, and they will go, okay, what can we do about it? What tools do you need? Do you have a meal prepared for the next meal? Do you, to go through things? They know that this is very serious, but also not something to be scared about.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with other parents, because I've needed other parents doing the same thing, and also to be able to share the fears and the hopes and the sometimes, you know, when you get crazy about going to a birthday party and they eat the amount of sweets that I would normally, you know, that you could eat in a year, they have it in one day, you know. It's crazy. It's really crazy. To be to have the support and knowing what you're talking about. I think it's very, very important to have someone with you that does the same journey, or know your why you're doing this.
I was listening to a interview on the radio today, and it was about ADHD kids, and I've done some interviews with a couple of people who work with ADHD, and I was just wondering what your thoughts are and how much you know about the connection between sugar addiction and ADHD. Do you think that there's a connection, or have you seen anything around that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot around it, and I know that you can, I mean, you can reduce the symptoms, and some don't even have ADHD when you cut the sugar and the flour and sweeteners and milk out. Usually they are very sensitive to dairy products. Right. But I'm not a doctor, and I shouldn't be saying this as a treatment plan or anything, but I've seen it. Then I look at, you have Michael Gorin, who's written a book that's called Sugar Proof. And it's in English, so that's a tip for a parent to read, really. And he was writing in the book about ADHD and so on, and he says it's beneficial, but he can't, I mean, you probably have to do some kind of disclaimer, you know, so you don't go too far. But he also says it's beneficial not to have the sugar, the sweeteners and dairy products and so on. Well, maybe he doesn't do the dairy products, but sugars and sweeteners and so on. So, and I think that's a very, if you're curious, you should really try it out as a parent, because it's nothing dangerous in cutting those things out and trying.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And Julianne, who was the doctor who came on the podcast about the ADHD, she was very much like you know, lots of protein, lots of fat for the brain, give the brain all those nutrients that it needs so it can function properly and stabilize. And although she said sometimes, you know, medication was needed and it was part of her toolbox, but she did use nutrition a lot with the children that she worked with, which I thought was really useful.
And also,
carry on.
No, I was thinking about the omega-3. That's what ADHD kids or adults also might need a lot of, kind of high amounts. And also some people that I know that I've been in contact with talk about the your stomach, you know, the bacteria and things the gut bacteria. Yeah, that's also linked with ADHD. There's so much out there.
Probiotics, and I know, and then everybody who researches their own little world is the most important part of it. And bring the whole thing, try and bring an overall overview of, you know, all these things may help, and it's a matter of trying things, because as you said, they're not going to do anybody any harm trying those things. You've written a book, but it's in Swedish, so we're not able to.
No, that's true. But I was so happy, you know, when I found the book that I was talking about, the Sugar Proof. Yeah. And they also have a lot of what is it? You know, I forgot the word in English. A lot of recipes in it. and also a lot of science, which I love. I also, the book that I've written, it's kind of hands-on how to do it, and the steps that I've been talking about, to having the 3 meals a day, adding fats, adding protein. And also I have through the year, okay, it's Halloween, what can we do to reduce sugar then? It's Christmas, or whatever, to have some hands-on through the year and so on. I started to Google translate my book, but I think I need someone to really check the English, because it sounds strange when you read it.
Yeah.
So I hope that I will have the time to translate it into English, because also the feedback that I've gotten is that it's not a very thick book. It's a small book, and it's hands-on, and it's easy to get the knowledge about addiction and some nutrients and so on. It's a good starter for parents, I think.
That sounds excellent, and I'd love to know when it comes out. But in the meantime, I'll put a link to this sugar-proof book and the show notes for people, so that at least they've got some resource to look at.
Yeah.
I just had another question down here, which I hadn't asked you about yet, and that was about the impact of sugar during pregnancy on sugar addiction and, baby's development and brain. And, is that something that you've looked at, and that I imagine that there's been research on that as well?
Yeah, actually it's in the book, the sugar-proof book, and they say to be very aware of not eating sweeteners during pregnancy, because that will make the baby crave the sweet taste, even to start with. I don't know. I mean, I'm an addiction counselor, so I don't have the medication, the biochemistry and everything behind it, but something happens, with the brain and with the development with the child, and that they prefer the sweet taste. And I think that's something very important to remember during pregnancy, and when you are breastfeeding and so on, that they will prefer the sweet taste. Kids always does, but they don't need the fructose and the sweeteners and everything. That's dangerous.
And I think that's part of our ancestry, really, isn't it? Part of our evolution is that sweet foods were safe foods, and they weren't very available in our evolutionary history. But when they were a good source of calories, good source of energy during fatten us up a little bit for the more lean times, perhaps. And we knew that they were safe to eat when they were sweet, because bitter foods could be dangerous to eat. So I guess we've got some evolution there about eating sweet things.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, it's like when you asked the question about fruit before, if you go back to just 40 or 50 years, and you compare an apple to what was growing on the trees then, apples like this, and if you have an apple today, they're huge, and there's no nutrients in it, and it's sweet, and that's how they develop the fruits. And I mean, even the taste of an apple 40 years ago, when they thought that was sweet, that kind of sweetness today, we would kind of, the ears would curl, because it would be so sour from our angle. But
we used to eat crab apples when we were kids, and they were so sour and bitter. But that would have been the kind of apple that was available,
Yeah, and you loved it anyway. You kept eating because they were tasty, yeah. But I mean, that's the case with all the foods you're eating today. They're not as nutrient dense as they were only 40 or 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to be careful with what you put in your mouth, and make sure that they really are dense in nutrition. So yeah.
Are there any final thoughts you would have, to adults and children that may have sugar addictions?
The first words that came into my mind was keep going, that we need to spread the word about this. It's so important to put it on the map, so to say. And also, I mean, there's so many of us telling about sugar addiction, but I think it's important to connect the dots with children and sugar addiction, and that we early on can make some changes. So get support, get help, and keep going.
And can people reach out to you, Annica?
They can.
Yep. So do you work over Zoom and do long distance work and help with, because I know you help with identifying addiction as well. Well,
I do the sugar interviews, but I also do one-on-ones. I don't do treatment, but I can help them further. I can make them start, so to say, and then refer them to next. But also when I do families, they can, it's like I say, that's not treatment. So they, if parents or families want to reach out to me, be welcome. I can be there. Yeah. And also I'm right now, I also have a support group in Swedish for parents, but I'm that's the next task on my to-do list, to start one in English, to have a support group for and that's, you know, the angle is going to be sugar addiction, and not only, of course, sugar free, but to having the angle of addiction as well, because I think it's very important that.
And would that group be aimed at adults with sugar addiction or children, or just across the board?
Parents, really. I mean, and in the Swedish group, there are parents who are addiction and who are addicted and consider that they might be addicted, and also some who just want to reduce sugar from their kids' diet, so to say. So it will be a mix, but I will, if you are entering the group, there will be talk about addiction, sugar addiction. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to help you, help support you with that, and help you find people and share that message. So, you know, once you're ready to go with that, I'd be really, really happy to, you know, share that. And
oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Get the message out there. Yeah, well, I love the work you're doing. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for sharing your very, you know, your story, your incredible story.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so happy that we can help each other spreading this message. It's really wonderful.
It's so important. And it's been so enlightening for me. You know, when I first heard Britten speak about the difference in how you manage someone with a sugar addiction to someone who may have harmful use, and the fact that you can only ever do one, it's just one meal at a time, one day at a time, and you start the next day. And that was a light bulb going off for me.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really important for those of us working, you know, in this kind of healthcare industry that, you know, I think back to, you know, a couple of clients, I believe, were sugar addicts, and one of them has reached out, and I think getting help from people like you and Britten and other people trained in sugar addiction is so important, you know, and we need to be able to identify those people and send them in the right direction to the right people.
And you are so right. I was sitting giving a lecture for families, and there were a husband who was very upset, you know, because he was working in some kind of obesity. He was a doctor working with obesity, and he was so angry, saying that, are you saying everyone is sugar addicted? And I was like, no, but I'm sure that you do have some clients that no matter what you tell them, they're saying yes, they understand it, and then they come back the next week and they haven't done anything about whatever you told them to do. And that's not because they're stupid, that's not because they don't want to, it's because their brains are hijacked. They know they're getting ill, they know they're getting worse, and they still can't keep it off, you know. Those people, those are the ones you're going to send to me. The other ones, please take care of them, because they benefit from get help from you, you know. And that's so important to know the difference. That's why we keep talking about doing a sugar, doing the evaluation, we need to know what we're treating. It's so important, really important. Yeah.
Well, it's been a huge help for me, and it's so wonderful to have, know that I can now know where I can send those people for the proper help that they need, because they just feel so discouraged, and what's wrong with me, and why can everyone else do this and I just can't do this? And
the guilt and shame that they're feeling. I know, the guilt and shame, they were with me all the time, and now I know why I couldn't do it. It's not my fault. I have the responsibility for taking care of my illness and doing it one day at a time, one meal at a time. But now I know I don't have to feel the guilt and shame, and that's a relief.
Yeah. So where can people find you? What's the best place for them to seek you out?
I think the best way is to, just Google my name, Annica Strandberg-Schmidt. I have a website, but that's also in Swedish right now. I have a lot of work to do.
It's quite hard finding information about you in English. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, right now it is. But the videos on my YouTube channel, which is also called Annica Strandberg-Schmidt, that's it. I have a lot of videos in English. So there you can go and have a look. And also my Instagram and my Facebook. You just type my name because I do write in English, so they can get some information. So hopefully you can find something there. Yeah.
I'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can go and check you out and find you. And I really encourage anyone listening to this who, even if you don't have a sugar addiction problem yourself, if you know someone who does, really, seriously, please share this information, because it might be life-changing and life-saving for somebody.
Yeah, and even if they don't want to hear it right now, they will have the tools. Like with children, even if they don't want to change their diet or reduce sugar, they will know it's possible to do it, Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for your time, getting up early this morning again.
Well, thank you. It's light outside now.
It was
when
we first logged on. So, all right.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this so much.
It's been a pleasure.